You Are Empty is a Ukrainian first-person shooter developed by Digital Spray Studios, published in 2006 by 1C Company in Russia and Eastern European countries. A year later, it was translated into English and published in North America by Atari. This game got awful reviews, averaging a 34 out of 100 on Metacritic and a user score of 5.4. So here we go again. How bad is You Are Empty really? Hey everyone, Jarek the Gaming Dragon here. If you're already subscribed and you haven't clicked that bell, be sure to do that, otherwise YouTube won't tell you that I posted anything. If you haven't subscribed, well, watch this video and maybe consider subscribing if you like it. So I've been wanting to play You Are Empty for quite a while now, but I simply could not get this game to work on my last build. But a few months ago I updated my computer, got a new motherboard, new RAM, new CPU, and an NVMe drive. Effectively, this is an entirely new build, and magically, this game works with my new build. This game can give you problems with newer versions of Windows. It seems to be 50-50 whether the game will just work for you or not, so you might have to do a few workarounds to actually play this game, but in my case, I installed it and it just worked. When I first heard of this game, I went on YouTube just to look up gameplay to see if I'd be interested or not, and the first video I found had a download link in the video information that had all the necessary improvements already pre-installed, which was very convenient. This game came out in the mid-2000s, so you usually have to do a lot of workarounds to make it work on more modern PCs, like a resolution fix, an FOV fix, things like that. But this installation just had everything working as intended, which is awesome. I didn't have to do anything. I just booted up the game, changed my resolution, changed my controls, and I was playing the game. I never had any frame rate issues or any crashing issues after that, so you might get lucky and this might be a game that just kind of works on your build without any problems.
Внимание! Говорит Москва! Говорит Москва!
Веселый, она скучать не дает никогда. И любят песни большие города. Нам петь весной и теплым помогает, она как грудь зовет.
The moment I clicked New Game, I was impressed. The opening cutscene oozes of artistic style. It's captivating, mysterious, almost feels lonely in a way. There's hardly any voice acting at all. And that pretty much sums up the entire atmosphere of this game. You Are Empty is set in an alternate history Soviet Union in the 1950s. Stalin still has power and is still trying to spread communism throughout the globe. In the very opening cutscene, you are hit by a car and thrown into a coma. You wake up in a hospital and immediately find that things are simply not right. Now this game has some obvious inspirations from Half-Life, but honestly I was feeling more Bioshock and Silent Hill than anything else. This world is vacant of any sort of logic. People have gone mad or are just mutated creatures, and now you can see why I compared it to Silent Hill. The art design and atmosphere is definitely this game's strongest aspect. Every time a new enemy showed up I had to stop and say, what the fuck is this? Oddly enough, reviewers' biggest complaint about this game was just that it was too slow, and damn it, I hate it when people complain about games being too slow and use that as a negative. Don't get me wrong, this game is slow, but the whole point of this game is the atmosphere and the world you're in. Silent Hill 2 has some wonky controls and odd camera, but if you remove those elements from the game, that takes a lot away from Silent Hill 2. You're a regular everyday dude that doesn't know how to fight, stuck in this mysterious town where everything seemingly wants to murder you. That mystery is the strongest driving point of the Silent Hill games. And if the combat was more modern, you would be more or less a superhero and not have to worry about these weird things trying to murder you. They would be a non-issue. If the combat was faster and similar to, say, Halo, that would take a lot away from this game. Unfortunately, this game released in North America in 2007, and at that time we were having games like Halo 3 and Call of Duty 4. Everything needed to be faster. Atmospheric first-person shooters were not as common during this era, and they generally didn't score as high as they should have been. And this is definitely one of those games. It's genuinely interesting to wander around this alternate history Soviet Union, and the fact that you have these bizarre creatures all attacking you with seemingly no regular people around only drives more mystery to what's going on. The way the story is presented is not direct. You don't know what's going on. At least not until later on in the game. And the way it's presented to you is not just directly told to you. I've noticed a problem with games over the last decade. Games went from being adventure games first and a story game second to story games first and an adventure game second. The best example I have of this is the Pokemon franchise. Let's take Gen 2, Gold, Silver, and Crystal. You're in Johto. You walk to Ecruteak City for the first time. Nothing interrupts you. No one says hello to you. You're able to walk into the city and see the old Japanese architecture. Eventually you're going to stumble across this burned tower. You wonder why there's a burned tower here. What goes on? Why is this not replaced? Why has it not been rebuilt? Eventually after this you will talk to the person standing next to the tower who will tell you the tower's history. You're able to walk into the tower and find the 3 legendary dogs. All of this happened because the player wanted to explore, not because the game forced you to look a specific way. If Gen 2 came out at the same time as Sun and Moon, here's how Ecruteak City would play out. You'd walk into Ecruteak City, your quote-unquote rival would come up to you and talk to you about how good the local sushi is, and then look at the burned tower and go, hey, what's that? Let's go over there. And then everything would play out in front of you without you doing a single damn thing. You'd be able to walk around the burned tower for maybe a few minutes, but as soon as you left, another cutscene would pop up interrupting you. Pokemon over the years somehow went from an adventure game first to a story game first. I'm hoping Sword and Shield don't have the same problems that Sun and Moon had, because Sun and Moon felt like a sightseeing tour with your best buddies. You were never really allowed to explore too much. It was walk into a route, walk to the end of the route, trigger a cutscene, or someone starts talking to you. Rinse and repeat. The whole game felt like a tutorial. And with shooters we ended up seeing something really similar. Especially around the release of Call of Duty 4, shooters then started to try to replicate what Call of Duty 4 did. Call of Duty 4 was already a heavily scripted game. It became walking down the rails of what the developers wanted you to see. The player had very little time to do whatever he wanted. You were playing at the developer's pace and only his pace alone. Players could not control the pace of the game. This is in stark contrast with other linear shooters that came before it. Take Half-Life. It's very linear, but the player can go at his own pace and explore the way he wants to. If the player had missed something, well then, oh well. I feel like doing what Sun and Moon did, or what a lot of shooters did trying to copy Call of Duty, is just pure laziness from developers. Instead of building things into maps that make players look a specific way that the developer wants them to look, they just force them to look that way, and don't even give them the choice or the option. Environmental storytelling is an art, and it's something that you can almost only see in video games. You Are Empty has this in spades. This is why I won't complain about the game being slow, because it has its own sort of feeling and pace to it that I personally myself really enjoyed. It had a fantastic art style that I loved to look at, it had genuinely interesting enemies, and the gameplay itself really wasn't that bad. This game plays pretty similarly to Half-Life. You can carry up to 9 weapons, and there's many different enemy types. The weapons you get in the game are a wrench, a C96, a double barrel shotgun, a nail gun, a Mosin Nagant, both with and without a scope, and with and without a bayonet. These count as 2 different weapons, a PPSH, Molotovs, and a Tesla weapon. These are all things that you would expect to find in the USSR, with the exception of the Tesla weapon. But this is alternate history, so I accept this one-off weird weapon. It unfortunately didn't seem to be too useful though, it just felt like another PPSH except for it had splash damage, which hurt me more often than not. As for the rest of the weapons, you could ADS with them, but I didn't find aiming down sights to be too useful, as they were just as accurate from the hip, and aiming down sights really limited your movement. Which again, moving slow is fine, but when you're in the middle of combat and you're stuck aiming down your sights with something running at you, you kind of don't want to be in that situation. As for the enemies, they're actually more interesting than the weapons. These enemies are bizarre. Like I said, I'm comparing most of these to Silent Hill enemies, and that's a lot of praise, because Silent Hill's design was, well, it was Silent Hill. As for graphics, this game looks acceptable for a budget title coming out of Ukraine in 2006, but nothing really amazing. What I found especially interesting is that You Are Empty lacks any sort of lighting or shader effects, which I didn't even notice until somebody pointed out. This means all of its lighting is baked into textures, which is actually rather impressive that I didn't notice this. I think the only reason I didn't notice this is because the entire game takes place in this dark gray, moody environment. As someone that lives in Portland and has my entire life, it's dark, gray, and cloudy 9 months of the year here. So yeah, there's not really going to be very harsh shadows, or any at all, most of the time. So to me this looks mostly natural and I wasn't really bothered. Sure, it would have been nice to have some lighting effects coming off of muzzle flashes and stuff like that, but I didn't think it really detracted from the game much. At this point you're probably saying, but the review said this game was bad, you've been pretty much praising it this entire time. And you'd be right. I'm actually kind of surprised at these reviews. I did not find this game to be bad at all. In fact, I found this game to actually be a hidden gem. I would recommend you to play this game. I greatly enjoyed it. I loved the atmosphere of it. I liked the gunplay, although it wasn't anything special, it was serviceable. And the general mystery of what the hell just happened in this oddly bizarre town with these mutant creatures and messed up people kept me captivated enough to want to see it to the end. I'm impressed, and in a pinned comment down below, I'm going to be leaving a link to the video that has a download link in his video description with the download I used to play this game with all the patches pre-installed. I think this game being slow is only one part as to why it got bad reviews. I think at this point people are expecting a game to be a story game first and an adventure game second, which leaves me depressed. For me, games as art is atmospheric storytelling. You can't get this in any other medium. The interactive part of a video game is something so unique that it really should be taken care of. I don't play video games to play an interactive movie. I don't care for scripted events. If this game played like a generic Call of Duty game, I would hate it. But instead I found myself loving the slow pacing because we just don't get these things anymore. So how bad is You Are Empty really? It's not. It's not bad at all. You should go play it. It's a great game that I would call as a hidden gem. That about sums up my video on You Are Empty. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Thanks to all of you that joined me over on Twitch while I was streaming. You can check out my Twitch, twitch.tv/Jared4GamingDragon. You can see it in the top left. My subscribers get to see my videos one day ahead of time. Same thing for my patrons over on Patreon. You can click on the link in the bottom right here. Thanks all of you for watching, and I'll see you next time.